Hello and welcome again to Level Zero Literacy. I'm Mason and this week we are covering Dishonored, one of the video games of all time. As always, we're going to spoil the game from beginning to end, and we're going to discuss topics that include but are not limited to pandemics, violence against women, and other minor sexual themes. Please use your best judgment before proceeding. Enjoy! Hello and welcome everyone back to Level Zero Literacy. My name is Mason. I am joined again by my wonderful co-host Spuck.
War never changes.
And Sam.
That's me.
Today we are talking about Dishonored, a 2012 immersive sim by Arcane Studios, published by Bethesda. Dishonored is directed by Rafael Colantonio and Harvey Smith. Forgive me if I've butchered those names. The player sees the role of the royal guard and lover of an empress in a plague-infested British parallel world. Your character's name is Corvo Atano. He seeks to redeem himself after the empress is assassinated in the opening moments of the game, and her murder is pinned on Corvo. The game is heavily inspired by past immersive sims such as System Shock and Vampire the Masquerade.
And Thief.
And Thief. Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
It's a big
Thief.
one.
And is usually credited with the reinvigoration of the immersive sim genre in the 2010s, spawning several sequels, DLCs, as well as other forays into the genre by Arcane Studios, who are primarily known for immersive sims.
There's going to be another episode that might get us in trouble with people.
Yeah. So this game is definitely held up as this like paragon, this like shining example of both a wonderful video game from the time period as well as a really compelling piece of fiction from the time period. And I don't want to put any words in anyone's mouth, but I think it's a pretty unanimous judgment by all of us that it doesn't really hold up to either of those standards.
I would say it does not hold up, and this is something I say a lot on this podcast, but it does not hold up to a modern design sentiment.
Yeah.
I think I can see why this game was heralded so highly in 2012.
Yes.
Because it was just a very different time for games. We didn't see a lot of games like this in that era, but now I feel as though there are a lot more pieces that do this kind of world building and do this kind of significantly better character development and all this other stuff, that I don't feel as though we need to hold this game up on a pedestal anymore.
I kind of also want to push back a little bit on it being like a good storytelling for the time, because I don't know, maybe I'm like really biased. I personally feel, at this point we talked about Metal Gear Solid 1 and 2, right?
Yeah.
Those games have a really compelling, interesting kind of storytelling thing.
Totally different time from when this game came out, though. That was 10.
Yeah.
That's a 10 years.
Yeah, that was 10 years before this.
I see what you're saying.
No, but like games move through periods. I feel like 2013 was when we were neck deep in Call of Duty. Halo had like narratives, but it was always like secondary to the multiplayer. I feel the early 2010s was a very big multiplayer LAN system focused time, and we had kind of moved away from the single player experience. And so this was, I don't want to say a revolution, but a revisiting of something that had been, as far as from a AAA perspective, kind of more pushed to the wayside.
Okay. Yeah. And so like a paragon of its time,
exactly.
But like specifically of its time window.
The early 2010s.
Yes.
And when I say that it was held up, I mean like just from a cultural standpoint, it was nominated for and won a lot of awards. I'm not necessarily saying that I endorse that viewpoint, as you all have read in our Facebook group chat. I have quite a critical view of the writing of this game. It's just that at the time, I pretty clearly remember that this was like a big deal. This was like kind of on the level of like BioShock and Mass Effect, how people kind of regarded it. Maybe not Mass Effect, but how people regarded this game for the writing at the time.
Can I talk about my one moment to sort of give perspective as to the way this game played out for me?
Yeah. Let's shake it up. Let's do our one moments at the beginning.
Yeah.
So when I did my playthrough of this game, I had a moment really early on where I was like, oh wow, this is really cool, interesting, unique piece of world building, but I'm not going to commit to it because there might be something later on in the game where I'm like, okay, this is like a bigger, more compelling thing. And it just never happened. So throughout the game, you can find different types of manuscripts, correspondence, books, all manner of writing from different characters. There's a lot of books by Sokolov. There's a lot of letters written between different characters in the game that really flesh out the world and stuff. The one that struck me the most was towards the beginning. I want to say I discovered this during my very first visit to the Hound Pits pub, where there is this 2-volume book, and I think the book is called like The Whaler's Journey or something.
Yeah.
And the first book is like, oh, I finally have this opportunity to make something out of my life, and everything's going to be so much better, and my family and my wife are going to be so proud of me and all of the things that I have done because I'm finally going to be contributing monetarily and contributing to society and making the world a better place. And so that's the first volume. And then the second volume is like, oh, my life has become a wreck and I've given everything to the sea and everything to this horrible institution of hunting whales and harvesting them for oil and meat. And I was like, wow, that's a really profound way to immediately give the player some concept of the world and how the world affects people and how the culture and the economy affects the people in the world. I was like, this is a perfect gateway to show me as a player how bad the situation here is in Dunwall. I can't wait to see how they can top this or like how else they can do this. And it just there was never really another moment after that where it hit at a higher level. I think there's a lot of moments in this game that hit at a comparable level. You know, when you visit the slums for the first time, after the turn, or, you know, the flooded district, any of that stuff. But I was so let down. They had this one really high moment for me early, and then they never really topped it at all.
I personally am so disappointed in like this hyper cool whale concept that they've come up with that like you don't even get to see it all in the base game.
They made like whoever was in charge of writing for the world in this game far outperformed whoever was writing for the narrative of the game.
There's a lot of really fascinating world building aspects, like the whole concept of the overseers. Like the stuff you read in the books and everything about the overseers is so interesting and fascinating. They like essentially adopt a bunch of children, and whatever children don't make it, they just like kill them.
Yeah.
And it's a very like brutalist institution.
And it's like built to go against this like very present and very threatening shadow figure that like many of the common people keep trinkets of.
Yeah. It's super interesting. But then they don't do a lot with most of it. You know, you meet the outsider. He is the main reason that you are able to succeed on your mission, because he embeds you with these otherworldly powers. But the outsider doesn't really do.
No.
I mean, he's meant to. He even at the beginning, he's like, I'm just giving you these abilities, and I'm going to be an observer on your quest and like see what you do to things. Mm-hmm. And there are shrines of his that you can visit. Most missions have one shrine you can visit. Not all of them do, where he kind of imbues you, gives you some more insight into things about the world. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It was always just something I was like, you did all this work. You clearly had the concepts and the foundations down. What happened in translation that you weren't able to bring all these like really interesting, cool world building elements into the entirety of your game? Because there are glints of it. Like in the very first mission, the first non-lethal thing you get to do is brand the High Overseer, which is essentially like the Pope, I guess would be the closest comparison I can make. You get to brand him with a symbol that basically means he has been excommunicated from the overseers. And that's like a super cool, fascinating way to depose of somebody. Mm-hmm. But then there's just never another thing like that in any of the other missions that you do.
I'm hate like, the non-lethal options.
You did all this world building and you couldn't find more compelling non-lethal ways to get rid of these characters than there's a creepy guy who's into this woman.
Yeah.
Or we're going to throw them into the mines forever. I'm just like... You had something good here. You clearly had something good here, but I'm so whelmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Give me your moment.
All right, I'm gonna be a Debbie Downer.
Hey, no problem.
My moment was when I figured out I was playing the game completely wrong.
Oh yeah.
So not just playing the game completely wrong, like a very non-obvious thing. Listener, when you're playing this game, if you want to actually experience the story of the game, the thing that you have to do every time you go back to your hub is talk to everyone and check every room, or you're going to miss 40% of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so wild, right? Because, like, I didn't think about it. I had kind of forgotten design like this even existed. Like, my real moment, the thing that I'm like, wow, this is super interesting, is one of the times when you go into Pendleton's room and listen to his audio logs. This one was how his brothers tortured him. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah.
I just thought that was such like an interesting concept because it really paints the rich and powerful people of this empire in a very specific way, right? And something that kind of, I guess, maybe frustrates me in addition to the world building is like the only thing that I think motivates Corvo is the fact that, spoilers, Emily is his daughter.
Yeah.
Because why would you want to help these people get into power? Like,
well, you got to think he was like kind of the equivalent of a company man for the Empire. He had a nice cushy job. Yep. He's the lover of the Empress, right? Like he's to some point, if he's not a believer in the Empire, he's at least someone who condones it. He's okay with it.
Yeah. And like, I think it's really interesting just playing this game and like it telling you like the things you're doing here are mortal choices when like I don't want any part in like most of this.
Yeah.
I think most of this is shitty and non-heroic, which I mean, you don't have to be a hero in a video game, right? No. Like that's a bit of a limiting thing, but like I just, when you go and you listen, like when you listen to the logs of like Pendleton and you just find out how terrible his upbringing was, which kind of explains why he's such a bad person too. Or like you listen to Havelock's audio logs, which if Corvo wasn't an idiot, or I don't even know if it's not an idiot. If you listen to Havelock's logs every time you come back, you know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's obvious what he's doing.
Yeah.
Yes.
And why would Corvo do nothing? Corvo's not stupid. Corvo is a supernatural assassin.
I think
what?
I think one of the biggest things about this game for me was that there's just way too much tension between the gameplay and the narrative, where
you think it's a little strained.
I think Thief is a big game that people compare this game to, right? The difference is in Thief, you intentionally implant yourself in situations where you overhear conversations about things.
Because you're trying to break into houses and stuff.
But in Dishonored, the gameplay is paced in such a way that you are encouraged to do things very quickly. You never feel like you're supposed to slow down and sort of sit and listen and let things play out naturally. And so as a result of this, we have to rely on these things like books, audio logs, all these other things to kind of flesh out the world and the narrative. And as a result, I think because of that, you lose the natural flow of how the narrative feels like it should play out. A lot of the situations that play out over the course of your missions themselves end up being fairly inconsequential to the overall narrative, other than the direct thing that you do to the people to get either the assassination or the removal of this figure, right? You know, all these side things are great for world building. You know, rescuing a woman from the police and so she can go back and, you know, assist her children. You know, there's like a moment where it's like, oh, you saved 2 lives today because that woman now gets to live and her child won't die because they don't get fed tonight or whatever. I think that was from this.
You talking about in the first mission?
The first mission. And so it was, those moments are great, don't get me wrong. I love moments like that because it's so good for fleshing out the world. But there's so many of those moments where it has no bearing on the overall narrative.
Yes.
And I'm just like, just make these moments tie into the overall narrative. Make the players want to slow down. Don't feel like all these missions have to happen at this breakneck speed.
I missed a lot of the story playing through the game because I went at the breakneck speed. You know, like, I didn't even go talk to Slackjaw at the beginning of the second mission.
Yeah.
Because I saw his guy standing there, and the last time I saw his guy standing there, his guy tried to kill me.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that to happen.
Yeah, there's no reason to believe that they'll
why
just
would
let
you?
you into
They were
the
enemies.
facility.
They were enemies last mission.
Yeah. And so, like, in doing that, I completely missed the non-lethal route for the Pendleton twins, which I think the better thing to do, both morally and just like world-wise, is to kill the Pendleton twins, then let Slackjaw, a criminal, I mean criminal in the sense of like someone not trying to do good.
Yeah.
Have some slaves for a mine he can take over now.
That's true of most of the non-lethal options, I would say.
A lot of the minority of the non-lethal options are the ethical sort of conclusion, right?
Yeah.
And
you send a woman off to be with her like stalker.
Yeah.
Right.
It even bothers me more because in the game, I think Lord Pendleton is like, oh, this is like poetic justice. And I'm like, I guess, but I feel like it's a little self-masturbatory for the developers of this game to say that.
Yeah.
If you ignore all of the other parts that the writers intentionally wrote around it, yes, it is a poetic justice moment. You know, if you zoom out a little bit, it just looks like perpetuating bad things that are already happening but you just kind of
like
shuffle up who's on the bottom and who's on the top.
You're just saying this is poetic justice because they're being doomed to the same fate that others doomed them to.
Yeah.
But like, that's just such a very surface level concept of what a poetic justice is.
Isn't it poetic justice that these guys that exploit people for money are now getting exploited for money? It's like, well, people are still getting exploited for money.
The other people.
How's that poetic justice? You just flipped who's on the end of the stick.
You didn't even flip it. You just like weighted it more on one side. Those other peoples are still definitely working in the mine.
Yeah, it was just now the person is a different guy who would exploit people for money.
I don't know.
So my one moment, and I'm going to echo a lot of the sentiments that you guys have brought up here. You touched on it earlier. In the closing moments of the first mission, you encounter a guard and an overseer talking with a woman nearby. If you can sneak past them during the short moment that they're talking, but if you stick behind to eavesdrop, you learn that the overseer is going to put this woman to death, and it happens to be the guard's wife. The guard, not wanting to jeopardize his own life, is trying to disarm the situation, but won't attack this overseer. You can attack and kill the overseer and save them, and the guard will be like, thank you, you've saved our life, we're going to remember this. And this is in a game. Some games are not about consequences. You do things and you expect that you won't see any sort of karmic balance for you doing it. And some games are about choices and consequences, and this is one of those. And not only did I never feel like that ever came back, especially when it was specifically pointed out on the mission end screen, like helped the guard and his wife escape. I was like, oh, they pointed this out because this is something that is like going to
pay off
in the future. I'm going to come back and see this guard. Not only did that, at least for me, never ever get revisited again, but by the end of the game, once you pass the third or fourth mission, these types of encounters seem to be wholly absent, completely cut from the game. By the end, altogether. By the last mission, the encounter that you have on the map is you jump in this window and there's just a random lady and she's like, I got the plague, get out of here. There's nothing you can do. Can't interact with her. And it's like, is this the same game? This is just like, in the first mission, you can either take advantage of a situation and leave these people to die by sneaking past while the guard's distracted, or you can intervene and potentially gain some kind of reward. And then by the end, it's just like, well, there's this lady that talks to you. You went in the special window and you can steal her food. And it's like, and then, I personally think a lot of development time and effort and care went into the first 2, maybe 3 missions, but not even really. It's really just the first 2 assassinations, and then the back 2/3 to 3/4 of the game. It's a completely different game entirely, and I think this probably came as a result of playtesters playing really fast and really loose, and then making changes to fit this breakneck playstyle, because all of the different powers you get are like, you can teleport long distances instantaneously. You can go twice as fast and jump high. You get a special bone charm that's like when you're crouching, you move at walking speed. And it's like all of these things in the game encourage, and like you were saying, there's like this tension between the gameplay and these very like special world building moments that almost push you past them. So I want to talk a little bit before we get into the narrative proper, just about the themes that exist in this game, and we'll kind of segue from there into how those relate to the story. I saw 3 sort of large themes that I saw echoed through pretty much every piece of writing in the game. The first, and they're all like struggles, right? This game is about tension and struggle and fighting, right? The first one is between hope and hopelessness. You see this reflected in these peasants that are looking to move up and escape the plague. You see it in Corvo hoping to save Emily. You see it in these nobles trying to maintain their wonderful lives against this horrible plague that's overtaking them. And by a little bit, and it's a little bit their fault, or one specific noble's fault, that this plague's around. Another one I saw, the second one, the big one, I think, is order versus chaos. This is reflected a lot in Corvo's sort of mission for revenge. You see this in how the outsider views sort of the society of Dunwall. You see this in how the nobles look down on the commoners with this contempt, this sort of hatred for how they live their lives so disorganized and ignobly. Ignobly.
Yeah.
And then the third big one, well, I guess good and evil plays like a very small part there. But then the third one I saw, and this is another huge one, is this playing with this sort of class divide, this class warfare that teams through every interaction you have between people in Dunwall.
And a bit of class warfare in like some specific things, right? Because Corvo's an immigrant.
He is.
And like, you don't really see it a lot, but like one of the first things in the first part of the game, the High Overseer is like, you're an immigrant.
Yeah. The place I mean, like, this is a pretty straightforward story point, but it's something that you can definitely miss, is that one of the nobles, the High Overseer that you assassinate, is the one who brought the plague to Dunwall.
Wait, not the High Overseer.
The Lord Regent.
The Lord Regent, excuse me. The Lord Regent brought the plague to Dunwall because he just hated the lower class so much. Mm-hmm. He thought the only way to restore Dunwall to its like proper place in the world was to wipe all these people out or place the survivors under like a martial law to control them like very strictly.
And that is actually why Jessamine is assassinated.
Yeah, because she won't buy into this.
Mm-hmm.
She's like cast as this benevolent ruler type, but it's easy to forget. It's easy to forget that Dunwall's in the state that it's in before the events of the game happened too.
I think the only character that really represents the only character I had like a very strong attachment to, other than the ones they kind of tie you to by force, Emily, it was Samuel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like Samuel is the most interesting character in this game.
Speaking of class warfare, Mason, you didn't put Samuel, Walter, Claudia, or Lydia on.
Yeah, because they're not important. They're the poors. They play. I mean, Samuel is the only one who plays like a measurable role in the story because all of the big players are the people who have the actual power and have any potential to capture any power in Dunwall.
I don't know. I find all of the servants of the Hound Pits pub to be pretty interesting. They're all given their own pretty strong personalities where they have different concepts of how they cope with the people that are around them and above them. Whereas some of them are kind of resigned to their fates and just want to do their part to make the world a little bit of a better place.
I mean, this is that.
And some of them are more like sucking up to the superiors and like they intentionally treat the other servants like dirt, even though they're on the same level because they think it'll give them some opportunity to climb the ladder a little bit.
I mean, this is that idea of hope and hopelessness I was talking about earlier, right? Like some of these people, for some reason, I don't know, feel like this. There's this idea that's pervasive against some of the lower class characters that things can get better, that things can be fixed or mended or go back to a good time. People above them literally just look at them with contempt.
Yeah.
But that makes them important characters to me.
It does.
Like
Samuel's great.
He's
he's
far and
so
away the most
poignant.
interesting character.
Like he understands what's going on a deeper level than like anyone.
And the worst thing about playing on High Chaos is that Samuel is just like immeasurably disappointed in you as a person.
Oh
yeah.
No.
He like regrets not giving you the entire dose of poison. Yeah, when you get to the Lighthouse Island at the end of the game, he'll actually shoot his gun to alert everyone that you're there.
Oh my god.
So I think that's like the worst part of High Chaos is that Samuel realizes that you're just perpetuating more terrible things into the world.
I don't think that the game handles its sort of sliding scale.
The morality system is so bad.
It's not very good.
Bad.
You know, when we played, I'm going to compare it to another game, which might be a bit of a sin because it's a little bit of an apples to orange comparison. When we played Disco Elysium, right? If you choose to be a fascist in Disco Elysium, you're not going to find anything except a full breath condemnation everywhere you go, and it's going to make your life harder, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in Disco Elysium, you can choose between 4 different political alignments, or you can be apolitical. In Dishonored, you can be low chaos, or you can be high chaos. And
the only thing defining those things is like how many times you're seen and how many people you kill.
Yeah.
And how many times the alarms are sounded.
Yeah.
Which is bananas.
Which I get it in theory, right? The idea is
You're
that
causing chaos.
Well, but it's not just about you're causing chaos. You're causing fear within the city guard. You are causing,
a paranoia,
an unsettlement among the ranks of the people that are in control.
But
so
to get back to my point, right? They put 2 options in the game. You can be low chaos or you can be high chaos. If you are high chaos, every single person from the outsider to Samuel, all these people do nothing but condemn your actions. You don't have anyone who is trying to make a case for chaos.
Yeah.
Which you don't have to if you're going to put other options in the game. But since you only put 2, it's just a straight up dichotomy. It makes it seem like the developers only really want you to play low chaos. When I got to the end of the game and I was towards the later outsider pedestals, the outsider, who seems to be presented as this chaotic being, would talk to me and be like, "Oh, why did you kill that assassin? Is it just because you wanted to be the best assassin? I bet that's what it is." And then Emily turns into this ruthless killer,
a despot, essentially.
And Samuel's like, "Well, I regret meeting you. I never want to talk to you again." And it's just so funny, the disparity. I would like at least one character to at least try to present a case for why you should be high chaos, which is it's so boring just to get condemned from every direction. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Mason popping in for the mid-roll ad break. Still no ads, but hopefully the CEO of Northrop Grumman starts responding to my emails and, soon. Fingers crossed. Anyway, I'm here to tell you to like, comment, share, subscribe, do all those social media engagement metrics that's going to bring us to the top of the algorithms. Anyway, I'll throw you back to the episode. Bye-bye.
You know what the worst part about the high chaos versus the low chaos system is?
What?
The high chaos final level is infinitely more interesting and satisfying than the low chaos final level.
So you saw me play the high chaos final level.
Yeah.
What did you notice that was different?
The biggest thing to me, so thematically on low chaos, when you get to the lighthouse, it's just sort of a overcast day. As opposed to high chaos, it's like a thunderstorm.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like raining. And there's a higher guard presence and yada, yada, yada. I think the thing that is most disappointing to me is on low chaos, when you get to the top of the lighthouse, the admiral just like gives up. And it's just like, "Oh, I don't want to do it anymore. You think I'm going to fight you? I'm not going to fight you. Why would I do that?" And you just like get in immediately and leave. Whereas like on high chaos, there's like this very high tension situation where he's like threatening to throw himself over the edge with Emily and like disrupt everything, and like which to me makes more sense that a man who has tried to wrest control from the entire time in this game and now has it and is on the verge of losing everything he has tried to get at, which I will get to in a minute as to why it makes no sense for it to play it out this way. But like, why would he just give up? It doesn't make any sense to me that a man that has put in all this time, effort, and resources into wresting control for himself would just stand there and not do anything when you show up. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In fact, wouldn't it make more sense for him to resign himself to that when he's in high chaos, because he knows how potent and dangerous you are as a person, and like the concept of fighting back against Corva would be such a terrifying concept to him that he wouldn't want to do. Just
before we get too far away
it makes
from
me
it,
lose my mind.
Before we get too far away from it, Mason, I have to ask you a question because something you just said makes me so confused.
Yeah, what's up?
So if you kill Dowd, who I think deserves to die. He is just an assassin. He runs a clan of assassins.
No, Buck, you don't understand.
How is it that him still living is in any way could be a good thing?
Buck, you don't understand. He regrets everything now after he assassinated
changed.
the Empress.
He is what? See, the thing is, Dowd has accepted Jesus Christ as his personal Lord and Savior, and he has been washed clean by the blood of the Lamb.
The game literally tries to guilt trip you into buying into like Dowd has fundamentally changed as a person because he realizes that everything is worse now as a result of him
because he
murdering
killed
the
the
Empress.
monarch. Oh my god,
it is wild.
So here's the thing that I need to I want to address so this morning I talked to a friend who really likes this game, just to kind of get a different perspective.
So did we, funny enough,
right? And he presented. So I complained about the fact that you can't use your cool outsider abilities, even put points into them, because they're useless if you're not really trying to fight people, right?
Right.
And he said, hey, he said this is a stretch, but he presented, hey, the outsider likes high chaos and is implied to really want bad things to happen. So you using those powers and doing those bad things and killing people is you being bad because you're siding with the outsider. But you just told me.
Yeah, I don't think
he
questions. It's not like a condemnation in the way that Samuel does, but he questions you every step of the way. He's like, "Oh, I see you killed that torturer.
Yeah, I don't even
think that was the right thing to do." It's like, yes.
Yeah. I don't think it's even objectively true that that he's trying to goad you into high chaos. I always the way he reads to me is that he's just an observer.
Yeah.
He just wants to he is literally, when he introduces you to him, he's literally just like, I'm just giving you these powers because I want to see what you'll do with them. Whatever you do with them is your choice. I'm just gonna sit here because I think it's gonna be fun to watch it play out.
Now, okay, so I'm gonna present to you a different perspective on this, right? You're right. That is nominally what he says. But the way he's presented seems to show him at odds with the Dunwall Empire. Not only because the religion is a straight-up anti-outsider religion, but a lot of the ways he is presented visually lean on tropes that have to do with sort of a H.P. Lovecraft kind of unknowable dark figure above comprehension that seems to position him as a chaotic figure to me.
Don't get me wrong. There is something very chaotic about gifting you the heart of your lover.
Yeah.
Yes.
And have her speaking to you from the afterlife through this pulsating heart. That's, pretty chaotic in and of itself. But I also just have no reason to not take him at face value.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, conceptually I can understand that he has something, that the outsider has something to gain in theory from the corruption of the Dunwall government and the Dunwall systems, but also he's a god. So
why care about mortal folly at all?
Yeah. And it's not that he doesn't still have worshipers. He has worshipers. In fact, he just encourages you to go help them.
Right.
It's hard for me to get behind a lot of the morality of this game because it doesn't make any sense.
It's not a good moral system.
It's not, but it wears the clothes of a moral system, but it's a chaos and order system, right?
Yeah.
So it exists independently of, or it's supposed to be not a morality system. It just so happens all of the things that are high chaos are pretty evil, and all of the things that are low chaos are pretty ethical, right? It's
in quotes.
It's they didn't do a good enough job wrestling it away from this normal video game mechanic.
Yeah, and to harp on your point about the point of no one going for high chaos. High chaos feels wrong when you're playing.
Which is crazy because the ending, I watched both of the endings.
Yeah.
High chaos ending feels right compared to where the rest of the story is going.
Yeah, I agree.
So you have to play in this way that you're butting heads with how the game is made. It was we're going to give you 12 different methods that you can sneak in. So if you bought high jump, you can use the rooftops, or if you bought control a rat, you can sneak in and you never have to come up against a single guard. You can mind control the guard and then use your sleep darts. But you get to the end of the game and it's oh yeah, and then Emily was a good empress. And happily ever after, she made everything good again. There's no more plague.
Yeah,
it was what makes sense? That or that the next empress of this broken, terrible, hopeless place also sucks.
Yeah.
That makes more sense to me, but you have to go on a fucking murder spree.
Yeah.
Can I talk about the thing that frustrated me the most about this game?
Yes.
So I went for all the non-lethal I wanted to do low chaos. I wanted to go for all the non-lethal options to depose of all of the main figures throughout the front half of the game. I think in the back half of the game, the non-lethal options just don't make any sense character-wise or thematically or whatever. But the non-lethal way that you get rid of the Lord Regent is that you acquire an audio log
of
that
him
is a
confessing.
full confessional
of everything he's done that's against the religion.
Everything he has done. He talks about bringing the plague to Dunwall. He talks about hiring assassins to murder the Empress. He literally, just for some reason, has a full confessional on tape just lying around in the same building where he does all of his propaganda from. So it's very easy to just slip in, take that log, and drop it into the propaganda slot, and now everyone in the entire city has heard it. That already sounds pretty bad, right?
Yeah.
That already sounds like something that is not in any way rooted in any reality of where a despot takes over. The thing that pissed me off the most is after you do this non-lethal option and you go back to the Hound Pits pub and get betrayed by the loyalists. The loyalists are still like, oh yeah, when we show up with Corvo, the murderer of the Empress, we're going to be heralded as heroes. And it's like, everyone in this entire city just heard the confession of the Lord Regent saying that he was the one that murdered the Empress.
It doesn't work anymore.
Fuck did you not program a different dialogue for the non-lethal option, because now this shit doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It made me so angry that you... And look, I get it. Video games are a lot of work. There's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. We were in a time where, you know, the choices matter stuff was still a new developing technology where branching paths were like a very new thing. And we were like, there probably still a lot of kinks and things to figure out. But the fact that you had these two very clear-cut options in your game, and whenever you do one of the options, it displays a different thing at the top of your screen where it's like, you know, target assassinated, whatever, or target, you know, removed or eliminated. And you didn't have the foresight to realize how this was going to impact your narrative. And now there is this gigantic plot hole that I literally, for the back half of the game, could not get over, because I do not understand why anyone would listen to Havelock when he is literally lying about who the murderer of an Empress to the entire public when they heard the confession from the Lord Regent. And it just...
There's a definite rush that you can feel to the end of the game, the later half of the game. Feels like things were crunchy, you know? Feels like the studio was trying really hard to fill out these big, beautiful levels that they spent a lot of time making, and then they didn't necessarily have like the most compelling things to put in them.
You forgot to mention the most prominent character in the latter half of the game in our character list.
Who's that?
The stupid sea urchin things.
Oh, what are they called? Hagfish?
No, that's the name of the fish that bite fish. Crusts?
Yeah, crusts.
The
crusts.
God, the stupid... They decided
instead of putting enemies in a level.
There's only two types of enemies: humanoids and turret plants. Why? Why not just put more humans where the plants are? Everywhere where those stupid plants are, they only act as an annoyance. It's never like, oh, this is cool.
They could have easily just made like a different type of weeper.
Yes.
That's like an immobilized person.
Yeah.
That has been paralyzed by the plague that just like spreads rot everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I would have been like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Because I don't know how this plague works. It's never explained.
Well, so there are things that explain it in the game, but it's more text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like Ebola.
I was fascinated by like reading like the work texts of the people were doing to try to like solve the plague.
Yeah.
Man, such cool world building with such...
I really wish Piero wasn't just such a annoying...
Weird incel?
Yeah. Because in concept, reading a lot of his writings, not all of them, he has some very interesting things to say, but he just comes off like a loser.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for me to buy into things, because he's always like, these stupid people, they just think that Sokolov is so much better than me, but I'm better than him. But then when Piero and Sokolov get together towards the end of the game, they're actually really interesting and bounce off to each other really well.
Yeah, they make a good duo.
And I'm
Where was this Piero?
This is so much more compelling and interesting than this like weird, creepy guy that you've made him out to be for the first like 60% of this game.
Which includes a scene where he's like playing peeping Tom on a bathing woman.
Yeah.
It's like, why did you put that? What, you don't get anything.
Did you guys know that you could, after he walks away, walk in there and hit on the bathing woman?
Yes, you can, yeah.
Oh my god.
You can also, after you hit on the bathing woman, if you keep talking to her, I swear to you, you can tattle on Piero.
Oh my god.
It's crazy that this is
Why
in
would
there
Corvo
for
ever do that?
There's no reason for any of this to happen. You walk up on Piero peeping through a keyhole and you're like, hey, cut that shit out. Like, don't spy on this poor woman who's bathing. And then you go in and you're like, hey, can I join you for the bath? What? Who decided that? And then after you get through that, you talk to her again and you're like, Piero's spying on you through the keyhole. Like, motherfucker, you just barged into her naked. Like, at least he had the decency to not make his presence known. What are you doing?
Everything. There's
so many things are handled so awkwardly.
Yeah, there's a lot of just weird choices in this game that don't make any sense.
Can I talk a little bit about the first couple of missions? Because I genuinely do have very good things to say about them.
Yeah, totally.
I really thought this game was, if the game was consistently at the quality of mission 1 and 2, this would easily be like an 8 out of 10 game. Do you guys agree?
I even like the bridge. Like, mechanically, I like the Anton Sokolov abduction.
The bridge
level.
mission is...
It's just where it starts to decline because it's a little more linear to me.
Yeah, it is more linear than the first two.
Like, the first couple areas, you have all of these interesting routes that you can use to get to your target. You can climb on these vents up in this big, in this religious, oh my god,
castle.
Like a religious castle. This huge structure. You can do side missions for these two different warring people. These two people, Granny Rags and Slackjaw, who are at each other's throats. You can play them against each other for your own gain, which is a really cool dynamic. You have multiple different side areas that you can visit to go complete the side missions and get a lot of resources that prove to be really helpful. You have these really cool, in the second mission, you can sneak up on one of your targets while he's in the middle of sort of like a sex work session and kind of torture him to get a safe combination that you can get a bunch of money out of, and do all these really cool things. They added all these rat tunnels for if you took the control rat power. And all, it's like so beautifully laid out. And I just wish every mission had a side mission like Granny Rags or Slackjaw telling you something. Once you do the one Granny Rags mission and the one Slackjaw mission in mission 1 and 2, you're done with them until the end of the game where they face off. It's like you couldn't help me develop this a little more throughout the other 3 missions that they disappear. You couldn't put something to do, because like in the later missions, the side mission is like, go to the basement, kill the torturer. He's all alone. He can't yell for anyone. He's sitting down there. He's turned away from the door.
Free some prisoners.
It's the same thing with the non-lethal option as well. You in the very first mission, when you have to depose of the High Overseer, you have to like figure out about the signal, the singe, the brand that you have to put on them to get them excommunicated.
Yep.
You have to find out where the room is where they go to take people to get branded. You have to actually find the High Overseer himself. You have to figure out how to get to the brand. There's like
you have to save him because he's being poisoned by another guy.
Yeah.
Well, no, the High Overseer is not being
he's poisoning someone else.
He's poisoning a guy who is another side mission that you can save that guy.
But that guy will still rat you out if you like leave him alive. So you have to put him to sleep first. So there's all these interesting moving pieces that you have to take to go the non-lethal route. And then when you get to the Lady Boyle mission, it's just like talk to this guy, knock her out, put her in a boat.
Easy. And like the lady,
like, what happens?
The worst part is like the level design never goes down. They're all like, you look at these environments and you're like, oh man, if they had kept up the level, if they had kept up the game to the world design, I don't know how I want to say this. If they had kept up the things that you are able to do, and it kept up with the level design, like these would be cool levels.
Yeah.
In the Lady Boyle mission, you can go onto the roof while you're exploring upstairs and look around up there. You can talk to, there's like all these different party members with different distinct personalities that can do different things, but it's only like 4 of them, you know, and you have this big ballroom filled with all these like generic NPCs that could have been more people, that could have revealed more things to you, that someone could have had a safe combination, someone could have given you could have talked to all the different people instead of just going upstairs and looking in the diary to find immediately the answer to the puzzle.
You also just get the answer to the puzzle from the one woman you talk to if you get her a drink.
She's
literally like, this one's in this color dress and this one's in this color dress, and then she's like, okay, well the other one's in the other color dress, and then you talk to the stalker guy and he's like, I'm looking for this one, and you're like, okay, well she wasn't one of the 2 listed, so it's the other one. So and I'm just like,
there could have been like 7.
You built this up to be this like really cool, interesting mystery that I have to decipher out, because, you know, that's a very common logic puzzle, is like you have, you know,
hidden identity.
So there's like all these like clues that could have been set up, but nope, everything is just given to you by 2 people.
There's like the skeleton of a great level there.
Imagine if you had to like go up into their bedrooms and like in one of their closets there was like an article of clothing they forgot to put on, like a pair of red earrings or something.
Yeah.
And then you had to like figure out whose room it was, and then okay, well that probably means that this, and then but then you go into the next room, it's like, oh, my sister stole my earrings, and so I don't know. There's just like so many layers that could have been added.
Imagine you go into the basement where the cooks are, and the cooks are like, oh, the white boil, no shellfish, she's allergic.
Yeah.
And then you have like something to go on. There were so many places. When you did the side mission in that mission, it was just like, oh, have a duel with this guy. It's over in a minute.
Yeah.
It's like, well, they could have provided something with regards to the main mission.
You don't even figure out what the feud was about between
Pendleton and
Pendleton.
Yeah.
Hey, you just get back and Pendleton's like, yeah, thanks for taking care of that for me. Here, have this rune.
It could have been, even if they wanted positively the decision that you don't figure out what the feud was about, there was a much better opportunity to characterize Pendleton there as a coward, as someone who manipulates stronger, more physically capable people to doing his ends for him. You know, someone who is like a powerful mind intellectually, who is like this cerebral sort of force to be reckoned with. But it's just like, oh, here you go. Here's your rune. Have a rune. You did a quest. You get a reward. It's like, come on, man.
I'm out of complaints. I feel like I've voiced most of my issues with the narrative choices in this game.
Yeah.
I've got a question.
Yeah, what's up?
Does Havelock poison the other 2 in the chaos ending?
I think he just straight up murders Pendleton.
Yeah, you arrive on the island and Martin is talking to Pendleton because Martin's just pulled up, right?
Oh, okay.
And he's like, come out, Pendleton, and fight. And Pendleton's like, no, fuck you, I'm in the tower. And you head up into the tower and Pendleton's actually just been shot.
Okay.
And you roll up and he's like, fuck you, Corvo, I'm dead already. And just slumps over dead.
Oh.
It's like...
Yeah. I mean, Havelock poisoning the rest of the loyalists and the low chaos ending doesn't make any sense either.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's like, why?
I think the crazy thing is that you don't have to kill Martin.
Yeah.
The replacement High Overseer is like, why wouldn't I be interested in getting rid of this guy? He's about to overtake the religion of all these guys that try and kill me on sight.
Yeah.
Why is that not a mandatory objective?
Or at least a side objective.
I mean, it is a side objective.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to do it. That's the crazy part to me, is you don't have to do it. Another thing which is wild is they build up these plague doctor dudes, the whalers, to be so awesome, and there's like 6 of them. There's like 6 of them in the whole game. There's 3 rooms that they're in, and then like one big building.
Well, they're also scattered across roofs and stuff. Like in the second mission, they're scattered across roofs. Oh, I was High Chaos in the second mission.
Oh, I wasn't.
So I think, so like
I tried to be. Don't get me wrong.
They show up more in Higher Chaos, I think, because I actually had to take them out while I was getting to the brothel, like because they were in the way.
it didn't even like hit me until late in the game that like their powers are also outsider powers.
Yep.
I was just like, oh, these are just magic guys.
Yeah.
Because like there's this one encounter you have at the very beginning of the game where you see this rune or a bone charm or something up in a tower, and you got go jump up there, and then 3 of these guys jump after you, 3 whalers, to try and come kill you. And it's like, oh, they're looking for the runes because they obviously are also imbued with the outsider's power. It's like, well, these guys could have been guys that raced you for all these cool runes and rewards throughout the game. These guys could have been guys that were also there looking for the same things.
I have so many, like, I just wish they could have seen what was cool about this story and done more with the cool stuff. Like, we haven't talked about how the charms of the outsider resonate with like this innate music of the universe.
Yeah.
And the overseers actually have these music boxes that let them pick up on that to try to kind of like find those people. Damn, that's so cool. But like there's nothing in the narrative does anything with that. Just like with the whales, like just like with this the like Revolutionary War that happened, like you don't see. I guess you can read it. One of the most frustrating things to me is you are clearly a servant of an empire that has done a colonialism, and you don't see any of the actual results of that.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that some rats were imported from, I think they were imported from the continent.
Pandisia.
Right? And that's what brought the sickness.
Yeah.
And it's like, why don't we see more of that anywhere? Why isn't that more of a part of a story than this like very lackluster political plot?
They made a great world. They legitimately made such a cool world. Like everything, like their whole electrical system runs on whale oil, and these whales like overpopulate the ocean. Dunwall, like the Empire of Dunwall, owns the entire continent you're on. Like that is such a mind-blowing. Like imagine if India was just like, we're going to take over all of Asia.
Yeah.
It would be, the implications of that are wild.
Mm-hmm.
And, the story that they stick you with is just like such a lackluster revenge fantasy.
Yeah.
And that's all it is.
Yeah.
It's a revenge fantasy.
Which isn't even like compelling in either way, I think. Like, I don't think it's good if you don't kill Dowd, and I don't think it's good if you do kill Dowd. Like, it's...
I don't know if I told you this. Sam saw it. When I played, the entire Dowd encounter bugged out, and I beat him in the first encounter, and he was just like sitting outside bloodied, and I walk out and he just looks at me, and I was like, Sam, is this it? And he's supposed to say stuff.
Oh, you missed him asking you to spare him part.
Yeah.
I didn't get that at all. I had to look it up. So to me, it was just like I walk out and Dowd just stares at me. I'm like, I guess I kill him?
And you killed him.
Why wouldn't I kill him?
Yeah.
He tried to kill me.
Yeah,
it's very clear he's going to try to kill me if I keep going because he doesn't like the outsider anymore.
Yeah. And like, spoilers for the DLC. I think the intended outcome, because if you play it low chaos in the DLC, the intended outcome is Corvo doesn't kill Dowd. Yeah. And it just doesn't make any sense. Like, Dowd living makes no sense for Corvo as a character more than any other non-lethal option, I think.
There shouldn't be an option to not kill Dowd.
It doesn't make any sense for Corvo. The murderer of his lover and his daughter's mother, who is an assassin, like he runs an assassin guild.
Well, I think the problem is less that it doesn't make any sense for Corvo and more that Corvo is never explored as a character.
Yeah, he's really not.
He's not.
That's true.
He's a tabula rasa, right? He's just supposed to be a guy that you can put yourself into.
He doesn't even say, I never asked for this.
This is a game.
It's so stupid.
This is a game that would be made a lot stronger by actually fleshing out your main character.
Yeah.
And that way there would be a reason to feel the weight of the consequences of your actions more than just the world slightly changing around you, sometimes in ways that you're not even going to notice. one of the consequences of being in high chaos is that there's more rats, but it's like, which rats?
Yeah.
Which are the high chaos rats?
Mm-hmm.
What, like, there's no discernible way to know whether something would or would not have happened in high chaos or low chaos. So the only moments where I actually felt like it was pretty interesting were the dialogue moments with Samuel and the way that Emily perceives you as a person. She either perceives you as her loving, caring father or this masked entity that goes around and just absolutely decimates people. Those are the only times where I felt like you really grasped the impact, because as we said, the ending just feels really flat.
If they had, it's another one of those things like I was talking about earlier when I was talking about the levels. If they had another 5 interactions, like the one where you turn up to Emily once you first rescue her and she's like, I'm drawing a picture of you, Corvo. And I was on high chaos. She was drawing me on a pile of dead bodies with like fire behind me. Like, that'd be so cool if there were just like a few more of those just like sprinkled throughout.
Yeah.
But it's like high chaos means more weepers. It's like, okay, I go into the weeper area and it's just like flush with them and I throw a grenade and they're gone. And, I've undone the high chaos consequence. I throw a grenade and I undo all of the bad things that happens from high chaos, Like, why?
But it's all about the ending. Okay, well, the ending is only like a 60-second cutscene of the outsider explaining to you what happens. There's no like tangible reason for me to really care about the consequences of my actions, because there was only one level where it really mattered, and the ending is so low impact.
It's wild. And then you when we watched the ending, I was like, Sam, is there any more to this?
No.
Yeah.
Is there a post-credit scene? No.
Nope. That was it. It was like, oh yeah, Emily took over and she's an evil little bitch. It's like, well,
everything is worse now.
Like, why does she know so much about my work?
Yeah.
Like why can Corvo not?
Emily,
she's like 7. You can. There's still time.
No, hold on.
There's still time to parent.
I'll push back on this a little bit. Emily's age makes no logical sense through the entire development of the game.
Yeah.
Sometimes she's like 5 or 6, and sometimes she's like 13
10.
or 14.
Yeah.
I'm like, where's the consistency with her age? I don't get it. Because like the drawings she does are very like,
they're kiddish
early on, and then she does this whole like wall mural of like multiple images spread across multiple pieces of paper, which I think would take some amount of like better, more concepts of like spatial reasoning and art and like whatever, right? That's something that I would expect from like a preteen. And like the classes, like her education doesn't like line up with any of her. I don't know. It's a mess.
It is a mess. But a lot of the characterization's a mess. It's got 10 too many characters and 10 too few characterizing moments.
That's all I got to say. I'm done. I'm done with Dishonored.
We're gonna get canceled.
Do we want to do? I mean, we've been doing it already. Do we want to do 60 seconds like we do with Dragon Age?
No, I feel like I've said it. I feel like I've said all the things I need to say.
We've had 60 minutes.
Yeah. This is a. I don't think this is going to be the only instance of us talking about why a narrative game doesn't work the way that the developers intended it to. And I hope it isn't. I hope we have more episodes like this where we can talk about the fundamental flaws of a game that tried to do something very interesting and compelling with its narrative, but ended up falling flat on its face. I think that makes for an equally interesting episode than let's talk about Disco Elysium for 2 hours and all these things that it did correctly.
Yeah. I like, if you're listening to the podcast and you feel a lot of passion for this game and you have some kind of comment for us other than like you're a bunch of jerks or a bunch of hurling slurs at us, if I would love to hear someone really articulate where the juice is in the game to them, because obviously it missed me completely.
And I want to emphasize that isn't in the world building. Like that
world building is great
because like everything that has nothing to do with the narrative is so much better than the narrative.
It's really cool. It's
like,
really cool.
The gameplay in and of itself is really well made. The problem is that you just don't get to interact with a lot of it if you do the non-lethal options.
There's like, you don't get to use 3/4 of your arsenal, the powers. You know, we're not going to retread this whole thing, but it's like, you know, I would love to hear someone articulate the reasons why this is good that maybe we can't really see based on our experiences, because I know this game was nominated for and won a bunch of awards. Like, it's got a very loyal fan base. It spawned sequels. Arcane, like
it won Game of the Year in places, right?
I believe so.
Came out in 2012.
I don't know. It's wild to me.
I was in college, man. I wasn't playing video games.
I gotcha. It's just I want to hear someone who's passionate about this game talk about it, because I'm certainly not passionate about it.
Yeah.
And I freaking suggested it for the podcast. So I think I'm good to wrap up here. How about you guys? We're
I'm ready.
70 minutes.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
If we get to 1,000 subscriptions before the next episode, Buck is going to cut out Sam's tongue and send him to work in a salt mine for life.
Next episode.
So
Spec Ops.
Spec Ops The Line, which is another game from this era, but I think much stronger narratively.
I've played 4 missions of it, and I enjoyed way better than this game.
I studied this next game in college, funny enough. So we will see you then. Once again, we have been Level Zero Literacy. Thank you for listening.